Hello, lovely 214 class geomatics. Welcome to the second half of the semester. You guys did it. You did the first half of the semester. Congratulations. Um, Lots of surveying. That's all done. Now we're going to worry about just a bunch of computer stuff. So let's get started. Mapping Lab 1. I am going to be using Mac. There are different options for you to use PC or whatever it is that you would like to, but I'm going to be going through the process on my Mac. First off, I'm going to open Terminal. I have already gone through the process on the CADM website to install Lab Connect. So just search Lab Connect CADM, and I'll type it right here, Lab Connect, right there. Type that in and you should be able to see all of the instructions in order to set this up for you. So now that it's all set up, I can click Lab Connect, put in my information. The pool I'm going to choose is a standard CADM lab. That's number 4. In this case, it's not always number 4. And what that does is open Microsoft Remote Desktop. I put in my password again, and I'm going to have a window into, I say continue, into a CADM lab machine. We are now like, this computer is no longer my Mac. It is now the PC. So a few like file management things. Arcgis Pro has a complicated file management system. Shape files, what it uses is a pretty terrible file extension in general. And just because of the restrictions, the considerations of making this program, it is actually pretty terrible if you're using any kind of cloud storage. And so you will always need to use internal storage if you want these things to work. So yeah, if you have it on your own computer, use your own. If you're using another computer, then use a thumb drive or just do it all in one sitting and submit it right from the computer. I would suggest that. I think these labs are kind of meant to be done in one sitting, and it's kind of easier. Lovely. So while this is starting up, I'm also going to open Learning Suite, where you should be able to get the data you need for this lab. So while this is loading, I'll pause this. Okay, so what I did, I went into Learning Suite, went to Mapping Lab 1, and I downloaded both of these, and that's what it is. File-wise, I'm gonna put these into a folder, and I'm gonna move this folder somewhere I can keep it safe. So I'm gonna go to Users, so C, local disk C, and then to Users, and then Dave Mons, that's me. I'm just gonna move it in here so I can find it. So yeah, that should have an Excel spreadsheet and also this zip file. I gotta undo this zip file, extract all, that should be fine. Awesome. So now I should have all my data, and I can go into ArcGIS, go map. I'm gonna go to that same folder, and this is all just to stay organized. So let's see, user, and find your own user in here. Actually, sorry, I'm gonna go in here and put it in there. I'm gonna create a folder for the project that we'll call Lab 1. This is not super, I'm not gonna create a folder. Okay. Okay, now that ArcGIS is open, before anything, I'm gonna change some settings. I'm going to properties, coordinate systems. I'm gonna type in here 12N and click enter. Projected coordinate system, UTM, 1983. There it is. That's what you're looking for. This will make sense later. We've got a whole unit just on projections, but you'll know you've done it right if it looks kind of like this, like weird, like a section of a beach ball. And essentially the reason you do this is because it reduces the distortion for Utah. And we're gonna be working in Utah today. Next, let's add a folder connection. Again, this is for organization's sake. So I'm just gonna add a folder connection to that user folder that I made. This right here. I'll just go straight to here. And what that does is under your catalog pane and folders, now you have kind of everything you can imagine that you might need. So yeah, here's like the demo coordinates and the mapping lab 1 data that we downloaded from before. Awesome. So we've got our catalog pane, which is kind of organization of files and stuff. And then you got your contents pane, which is telling you all the layers that are on your map. So let's add another layer. Now let's add a base map. Just for fun, I'm going to add imagery. And now we've got a satellite image. If I wanted to, I could do imagery hybrid just so I can find things a little better. There we go. Something important to notice is that these have a specific order. So for example, if I put world imagery on top of hybrid reference layer, it goes away. So if you're ever missing any kind of layer or something like that, just make sure that it's up. Up means that it's on top of the things that are below it. We want the hybrid reference layer on top of the world imagery. Awesome. Next, we've got to make sure we've got added a base map. Yeah, next let's put in our data. So mapping lab 1 data, let's just put that all in. We're going to put in this TIFF. A TIFF file is something you might not have heard of before, but it's a raster file, or an image is probably what you would call it. And that's this right here. It's a raster because it's like a grid. And if you zoom in, each pixel represents a value. And so I'm on the explore thing here, so I can click and it'll tell me the value. And this is elevation value. And then it's like shaded in. So different elevations are different colors. And so that's how that works. Also in every single layer, let's see, let's put the hybrid reference layer below because we don't care about it. Every single non-raster, so you've got polygons and polylines and points and those kind of things, we'll have what's called an attribute table. So if we go into NPS boundary and drag in this shape file, these are all of the national parks boundaries. And if you right click and go to attribute table, it's essentially an Excel spreadsheet that keeps track of all your data. So each one of these polygons has some data attached to it. So if I do explore again, this right here is Grand Canyon National Park. It has an FID number, it has a unit name, has all sorts of data in there. So that's what that is. Now let's add XY point data. So we're going to add data and XY point data. We're going to add a couple things. Let's see, it's going to take a while. Awesome. So once it's done creating that geoprocessing cache, you don't have to worry about that yet. And we'll talk about geoprocessing later. But input table is going to be NPS boundary. Oop, I lied. Input table is going to be these demo XY coordinates for now. This is just an example of, we're going to put in sheet 1. And let's change our coordinate system to current map. So that's 12N. These example demo coordinates come from a surveying lab, I think it's number 3, where you took the survey, you took the measurements. It was out by the JSB. And so let's rename this. Let's call this demo points. You can call it whatever you want. So when we run this should give us some traverse points. Now, these are just like some generic traverse points, but you're going to put in yours, or you can use these ones. Doesn't matter. And we're going to zoom to layer. And look at that. There's just some random points, basically. And we're going to put in another one. Let's go back and let's put in here, there's these mystery points. And we're going to put that in there too, but we're going to be sure to rename this mystery point. And go ahead and run. Oh, JS doesn't like spaces, so you have to use anything but a space. Let's look at these mystery points. What are those? Zoom to layer. Oh, looks like our mystery points are the temples in Provo. So yeah, Provo City Center and then the regular old Provo temple. Awesome. So we've got our points in. We now know how to put in XY point data, and that's pretty great. So now let's look at some tools, some of these things. We've got measure up here. We can measure distance. So say we want to measure the distance from here to here. That's going to be 3,000 meters or so, probably. And that's not super helpful. So let's go into miles and see what that is. 4.66 miles. So you can change that there. Notice if I keep going, it's going to add to what it is. So if you want to make a new measurement, you have to clear results. You can do the same thing with measuring an area. It will measure whatever's on the inside of this. Again, if you want to measure another one without having it to add to it, then you need to clear first and then measure. One of my favorite things about this tool is how it helps us in this lab. We are going to need to measure the area of one of these national parks. So we can actually just click measure feature and bam, it gives us everything we need: square kilometers, square meters. And then you can change it to square feet. You can change it to miles, whatever the lab is asking for. Another thing that you'll want to turn on is snapping. Yeah, so snapping is going to be on the edit tab, and just turn this on. That's all. You can what this does is it'll snap to points or whatever all these are saying. And we just want that on so it can be more accurate. So notice now when I try to, now when I'm going to do a measurement analysis, now when I go to measure and I want to measure distance, it will snap. It'll let me measure exactly from that point, which is super helpful. Okay, another thing you can do is search the attribute table. You can search this bad boy. So to do that, we go to map and then selection and select by attributes. Selection, select by attribute, sorry, select by attributes. And this opens this little pane. And you have to tell it what you're searching. So let's search NPS boundary, selection type, new selection, and let's add a new expression. And let's try and find the Grand Canyon, or let's start with that. So park name is probably helpful, is equal to, and then have all the names. So Grand Canyon right there. So then when I click OK, now it should be selecting. Now it's selecting the Grand Canyon. Another way I can get to it is just go to here and say selection and zoom to selection. Super helpful there. These zoom tools are really helpful. And you can search basically anything you want. So let's say I wanted to select all of them in the state of Utah. Utah's got a lot of them. Anyone know how many? Utah's got 12, according to this. So yeah, pretty cool. 12. Yeah. So that is the select layer by attribute. Anyway, so that's just kind of dipping your toes real quick into ArcGIS. So now let's actually start making a map. A map has all sorts of cartographic elements, a neat line, and all of these will be required in your lab. And so you got to put like a box, a neat line. It's got to have a north arrow, a scale bar, a title, and projection information, coordinate system, all that. And we'll go into this more later, but it's really important that you put all those in because that is pretty much how we grade, is we make sure you have all of the cartographic elements and that you did all of the GIS stuff correctly. Lovely. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is add a new layer in our geodatabase. So we should be able to like select here and go into this guy right here. So under folders, wherever you're keeping your lab information, there's this little like cylinder here. And we're just gonna new and add a feature class. And we're gonna digitize some points. So we can call this cities. And they're gonna be point. Yeah, okay, we're gonna go to next. And let's add some new fields. We're gonna need the names of the cities, and that's gonna be a text. Well, I think that's it. I think that's all we'll need. So we can click finish. And now we have this guy named cities. And now we're gonna do what's called digitizing, where we go through and we drop points at all the cities. So we can get rid of this. And this is pretty fun. We go to cities and then let's go into data, I think. Here, it's edit, sorry. Edit and then create and click cities. So you're telling where the point, you're telling it where to put the points. And I want a point here. So now I'm just gonna choose my cities. Santaquin, Payson, Spanish Fork, Mapleton, Springville. The cities that you choose aren't necessarily the most important thing, but I'm going to choose these cities. And you can't see them pretty much at all. They are technically there, but it's fine. So now go to save all edits. Let's go to the map. And now we're going to just click explore so that it'll stop dropping points. And we're going to double click. We're going to double click on this in here. And now we can control what the symbols look like. So let's say I wanted it to look like this. Now you can actually see them a lot better. Say I want to do fire station or a park. Anyway, you can really do whatever you want. In fact, if you go into properties and in this guy, let me find it real quick. So this one, shape marker, we want to, well, first let's just change this to regular old something. And we want to change this to a picture marker. And the reason we're going to do this is so that we can actually grab something from the internet and drop it on in there. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to search on the internet for any image that you think would work well as like an indicator of the city. So the example here gives you donuts. I'm going to search and see what I can find. Make sure that it is transparent, like it has a transparent background. You'll get dock points if it doesn't. So I went on the internet and I searched BYU, and under tools, I just click the color and change it to transparent. So that's how I can find transparent backgrounds. And I'm going to use this one. So I'm just going to save image. I'll just save it into that same place, and we'll put it on into Arcgis. Okay, so now I'm back in Arcgis. I've saved my little image of BYU. I'm gonna go in. I've changed this to picture marker, properties, picture marker, and I clicked file. And sometimes things won't show up in here, and you just have to click refresh, and that'll make it show up. But anyway, I'm gonna go into users, go find it. Should be in here. There it is, probably. Okay, but that's really small. Like if I click apply, you can't really see that at all. So I'm gonna make it bigger. Let's make it even bigger. Just make it something reasonable. Doesn't have to be crazy big. Like that's even kind of small. Let's do that. Okay. So now we've got our markers and they're some sort of image. So now I'm going to go into the attribute table. I notice how all of these names say null. I want more information than that. And so I'm going to put in the names. So let's see. I'm going to double click on this little box here, and that will select it for me and tell me, and it'll zoom to where I need to see. So this is Santa Quinn. Number 2, I think, is Payson. I could be wrong, but that's fine. And then number 3 is Spanish Fork. Anyway, I'm going to put in all the labels here, like all of the, I'm going to add all of this into our project. Okay, so now I've put it all in. Notice Lehigh selected, and it kind of highlights that. I also noticed double clicking it sometimes works, sometimes you triple click it. Anyway, so now we've got some information about these points, but that's not quite enough. I'm going to add in some labels. So I'm going to right click on the layer, and I'm going to click label because I want to be able to tell what these are. And notice how you see nothing. That's because we got to go into labeling properties. Technically, there are little numbers here, and that's because it's pulling from object ID instead of name. And so when I go into here and I click labeling properties, I can change this expression. So instead of object ID, I'm going off of name, and I just double clicked on name. And we'll apply that. I now see it has a name there. That's not really good enough. It's not a very good map. And so I'm going to go to symbol, and here I can control everything. The font, the size. My favorite thing is to go to call out and do a balloon. It's kind of easy. And we could even make it a little bigger. I think that's in here. Yeah, we could even make it a little bigger. Maybe not that big. But anyway, there's a lot of creativity you can have in here. We just want, you are kind of, it's kind of your job to make it look good. And that can be, you know, a very, very subjective, but if it's readable, if we can tell like which label goes to which point, anyway, and if you have all the cartographic elements, then you really succeed in this lab. Which brings me to, now we're going to make the map itself. So we're going to go to new layout, and we're going to do this on a letter size paper. Step one, we're going to make a neat line. And you'll get very used to making maps because you'll make quite a few of them. I'm just gonna do 1/2 inch on both sides. So let's see, 1/2 inch like that. Something like that. Oh, that was a text box. But you know what? A text box should work too, because I just make the text empty. And I tell the box to have an outline. Oh, it does. Anyway, probably the best option is going to be, instead of a text, make sure to do rectangle. So we're going to go 1/2 inch on both sides. There's a 1/2 an inch, more or less. Good enough. Okay. Now we're going to add our map frame. Bam, that's pretty dang good. Just make sure that your neat line is containing everything that's in your map. I'm just going to do a little border. Again, this is kind of up to you guys. Be creative. Trick I'm going to do, I right click, activate. I'm going to go to cities and I'm going to zoom to layer. And what that does is it just gets the perfect zoom for what I want. I'm also going to uncheck these random other things, and that'll just keep them off of my map. So then to deactivate, you go to layout and close activation. Awesome. Another thing I'm going to do is, this stuff is really ugly to me. So I'm going to go to dynamic text, and it's called credits, system credits or something, service layer credits. And I'm just going to put them over here. And that's it. That's the only way that you can get rid of those nasty, ugly things. Okay, now let's add all of our text that we need. Let's add a title. And let's call this major cities in Utah County. The lab has you do some more cities than this. Do what the lab says. So it has you go all the way up to Salt Lake. So you could say major cities in Utah and Salt Lake County. But honestly, if you just do this, then you'll be fine. There's your title. I'm not going to make this particularly pretty, but next we have, I'm going to put my name and the date, which is, come on, 18th of October. Something helpful is to also put in the class and the lab. There we go. That's pretty good. Now let's put in our north arrow. Be sure to click on the map frame so it knows what to do with the north arrow. If you're not clicking on anything, it'll give you a north arrow. It just won't be connected to anything. This north arrow is connected to this map, so it's actually pointing at north. And that's why you have to be sure to select the map frame first and then put on your north arrow. You can also, in here, in the properties, you can go in here and change it. So right there, that's none, map frame. It changed it just a slight bit, but we want to make sure that you have it. So you have it connected to this map. I just changed it white because I think it looks better that way. Next, we're going to do a scale bar. Same story. This one, I forgot to select it, but that's not a big deal. It's just going to do a random scale bar and it doesn't know what to do. And actually, it did it for me. It connected it to this map frame. As opposed to none, where it doesn't know what to do with the scale bar, we did map frame. Now this one, we can go into the symbol of it all, and we can change the text to white. There's that, we should be able to change. Let's see. What we could do is add a border and a background. That could be helpful. But yeah, be creative with this. Let's see, you should be able to have units. Let's have the units, they're white. That's good. The division marks, let's make those white. And there could be a way to make it all white at the same time, but yeah. Anyway, so just going through and making everything be white instead of black. And this is kind of a hassle. So if you don't do this, that's totally fine. Anyway, good enough. That's perfect. So now you've got your scale bar. There's one more thing that's missing. We want a legend. Again, you can, if you're not clicking on the map frame, you can put in your legend, but it'll just be like, ooh, what do I do? Or it'll be smart and actually take from the map frame. But say you have multiple map frames, it won't know what to do. So be sure to click on it first and then draw your legend. This is a great legend. You could label it legend if you want to. You also don't have to, but in order to do that, I think that's in this one of these. Name. Yeah, title will show that. And then you can tell it's the legend. Okay, there's one more thing that we need to do, and that is spatial reference. Spatial reference we'll learn a lot more about later, but it's talking about the projection, and it's talking about basically what is this map like behind what we put on the map. What is our like metadata, if you will. So we're going to add our coordinate system. There's a way to do this through dynamic text. I don't suggest it anymore. You can go to dynamic text and click spatial reference here, but there's a lot of things you need to delete, and it also takes a long time. So I just like to copy and paste this in transverse Mercator, but it's up to you. And that's giving you all your information you need to know about the base map and the coordinate system and all that. So look at that. Now you've got your first map. Pretty awesome. So now to export it, you go to share, layout, and it'll open up this little thing, PDF, and it's exactly where I want it. And that's perfect. We're going to export that, and then we'll end up submitting that later. Awesome. So I just realized for the next part of this lab, you needed some more data. So I went and uploaded that to Learning Suite. And I have downloaded it now on the computer. So it should be here. But anyway, essentially, that was important. So now what we're going to do is create a new map. Yeah, And remember, what we always got to do is change this to 12n. Okay. And we're gonna make our second map. Let's see if let me find the data in ArcGIS. Okay. So essentially, now let's put in our data, which it should be in here now. Yeah, so we're gonna put in all of the lakes, and that'll give us this. If it once it loads, there's that. Lovely. And let's do all the roads too. Now here's the thing with roads. There are so many. And what we're giving you is like literally all of them. Like, oh boy. And honestly, if if you give this to us, it's probably fine. This is just slowing you down a ton. So we're gonna go into select by attributes. And we're gonna make a new selection like we learned how to earlier. We're gonna go to Carto code needs to be equal to 1. And what this is gonna do is select only these major highways and then right click here, selection, and we can make a layer with selected features, which is exactly what we're gonna do. And now we don't care about this one. Look at that. Isn't that better? So now that we have this, we're going to click on here to modify the symbol. I'm going to go to the gallery and choose highway. Yeah, looking good. And let's make these lakes, let's make them be, you know, lake colored. Look at that. Lovely. And now let's make this base map be something a little easier to see. We're going to make the base map be light gray canvas. This one. Lovely. Awesome. I don't think we even need let's take off this reference. And here we've got this. This is what we should have so far. Now I want to add some labels. Right click, add labels. That'll give us that. And let's add some labels to here too. And you can use what you know in order to, this is gonna, you can use what you know in order to adjust these labels and make them better. And let's see. Oh, it's just loading. We're going to do the same exact thing that we did with the roads, and we're going to do it to the lakes as well. So we're going to select by attributes. It's set to lakes this time, new expression, but this one we're going to say is major, and we're going to say is equal to 1 because we only want to select the major lakes. Yeah, that's looking better. And then we're going to make a selection, make layer from selected feature. And that should be a little bit faster. Let's try labeling that. There we go. Although we've got a lot of labels, so let's go into our labeling properties and adjust in there. Okay, so I've reduced the number of roads, I've reduced the number of lakes. And now when I label, I want to just real quick go into these labeling properties and then click on, let's see, position, remove duplicate labels. This will just help to get rid of some of the duplicates. And then I'm going to go into this one. Let's label these two. And these ones, I've already gone in and removed the duplicates. So position, remove all, but I also put in minimum feature size perimeter and I set it to 20,000. And this is going to mean, this means that it's got to be a little bit bigger in order for it to label it. And there we go. And then essentially what you'll do is you'll go through the same process as this one, export a layout, and then you're good to go for that part of the lab. In addition to these two maps, you're also going to have some screenshots. So screenshot of the XY data points of your traverse and the mystery points that we did near the beginning. You also want, so let's see, that's on this map. And right now I still have it on here. I can just uncheck and just screenshot this right here. That's all that is. Also, we want to be able to, we want you to screenshot to make sure that you did this correctly. So it's a screenshot just like this and with the Grand Canyon selected. This can be either select like I just did, or you can select by attribute. We also want the identify tool or the explorer tool is what that's talking about. So essentially just the same thing, but with the pop-up right here. Screenshot of all the parks in Utah highlighted. So that's essentially, you go select by attribute, and we went over that. How to select, you just say your expression is where state is equal to Utah. And then there's a series of questions for you to go through. So using the Explorer tool, give a range of possible elevation for the different places in here. So this one's going to be really low. And so that's kind of a low, and then this will give you a high one. And so that'll be giving us the range. I also want you to look at the attribute table, and all of this is just to prove to us that you are kind of understanding this first part, NPS boundary, attribute table. And we want to know the first 4 columns. We also want to know how many national parks are in Georgia. So you can use select by attribute again and say where state is equal to Georgia. And then you'll be able to see right here how many it selected. How many parks are in the NPS boundary. You can do that with the FID number. It goes from 0 all the way. If you go to the bottom, it'll have a number 417. So it's 418 because it's plus that one that was being counted as 0. What's the name of the window that shows the layers? That's going to be the contents. What's the name of the window that shows the data files and all that? That's going to be the catalog. So these are just making sure you're paying attention. What's the distance between the 2 mystery points? We went over that. Distance between the points in your traverse. And you should see, you should compare that to the data that you had, and then give us some ideas of why that would be different, because it will certainly be at least a little different. And then also make some queries. So with the select by attribute table, you can say, you can select all of them within California. You can select all of them that are bigger than X amount. So there's a lot that you can do with those queries. And again, yeah, select by attribute. If you go in here, there's a lot. You can say region is equal to, you know, whatever that means. And we want you to do 5. Oh, so that was Alaska. So we're selecting all of them in Alaska. And we want you to do 5 of those. So you have your screenshots, your questions, and then both of your maps, and then you'll be good to go. Again, for this one, yeah, be sure to have the labels and all of your cartographic elements, and you should be good to go. Hopefully this was helpful. If not, I have my TA hours and I'm here for you. Thanks so much.